What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dead Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Jon F. Merz, as always. This is episode 24. So, let's see, a bunch of stuff to talk about today. So, look at my notes here. Why don't we kick it off with the whole acting thing? So, had a bunch of auditions over the course of, well, let's see, this comes out on Thursday. So, between Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and now it's Wednesday. Had a bunch of stuff pop up, so to speak. One of which is a possibility of being in another movie, so that would be really cool. This one would be a Christmas movie of all things. So if you are a fan of Hallmark Christmas movies or Lifetime Christmas movies or wherever they're showing, I mean, they're showing them everywhere now. I mean, so be pretty excited about it, actually. I thought the audition, the script for it was pretty cool, and I'd be into it. I gotta be honest with you. So it's not the leading role, but definitely a supporting role. And so I sent that audition off. That came in, I want to say last Thursday night. So I was sitting down in the family room by the fire, and my agent emailed me with the script and said, "Here's another opportunity. Please get it in by." Actually, the deadline for auditions is tomorrow at 5 o'clock, but I turned it around and got it in the very next day, because a lot of times, that's an interesting thing that happens with a lot of these auditions, is they'll tell you that that you have a deadline, and this is only something that's come about as a result of the pandemic, with all the self-taping that goes on now. So it used to be, you know, you'd have an audition scheduled, and you go in, and you know, there'd be 1 or 2 days of auditions, and then that would be it. Nowadays, the new reality of being an actor in the pandemic world is that you do self-tapes, and then you have a deadline for self-tapes to be turned in. So this one had a fairly long period where you could send tapes in. But the key to all of this is to get things in as soon as possible. So I try not to wait until the last minute to do any of this stuff. And I was pretty happy with my audition tape. I thought it went really well. And I was also pretty happy about the fact that I turned it around as quickly as I did. Literally within 12 hours of getting the script, I'd sent off a couple of takes for the director to check out. And so now we wait. We see if he liked it, and if he wants me to be in the movie, which hopefully he does. And we'll go from there. And then, after I got that, I got another submission request for another audition that would be for a TV series on AMC. I don't think this series has debuted yet. It's an intriguing title, let's put it that way. So I don't think that it has come out yet. I think this would be season 1. And my role is it would be called middle-aged man, which I guess I am now. I mean, I'm gonna be 51 next month, so I guess I'm firmly in the middle-age camp now. But that's okay. I completely embrace it. The audition itself was I thought it was hysterical. I can't really, as always, talk too much about it, unfortunately, but let's just say that this is not the kind of TV series your kids are going to be watching if they're young. If they're older, if they're teenagers, they might get a kick out of it. Anyway, yeah, I'd definitely love to share that self-tape, because I think it would be a lot of fun for folks to watch and listen to. Unfortunately, I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which is, you know, par for the course for a lot of these Hollywood productions. They don't want anybody talking about this stuff, you know, beforehand on social media, stuff like that. And I try to give you guys as much as I possibly can when this stuff comes in. Unfortunately, a lot of times my hands are just simply tied. With that said, I have all of these self-tapes, and there's a big part of me that wants to just throw this compilation together and then just put it out there and be like, these are some of the crazy things that I've tried to get in terms of acting, and just see where it goes, because I think it would be fairly hysterical for folks to get a look at what goes on. I did post a slate, which is just, you stand in front of the camera and say, hi, my name's Jon Merz, I'm non-union, I'm represented by Maggie. Sometimes they want to know your height, so I'm 6 feet, all that kind of garbage. I did put one of those out on Instagram at Jon F. Merz Official last night, I think. Yeah. So, but I think it would be really kind of cool to do a compilation video and just have that all out there so people could see it. Who knows? It may happen in the future. I'm not sure. It depends on, whether I book the job or not, whether I can talk about it or not. There was an incident, not with me, a couple of months ago, where somebody signed a non-disclosure agreement and then actually put their self-tape, the whole self-tape, not just the slate like I did, but the whole self-tape out on Instagram. And this wasn't for a movie or for a TV series. This was for a product. And the script of this product, and I know because I actually auditioned for this, I didn't get it, but I auditioned for it. The script for this product had extensive amounts of proprietary company information in it. So, basically by putting the self-tape out on social media, this person was compromising proprietary information, technical specs, this, that, and the other thing. And it was just, first of all, it was a stupid thing to do. Let's just be honest. You don't do that. If you look at a script and it's like XYZ is blah, 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 you should have common sense enough to go, I probably shouldn't put this out on social media. But the world we're living in nowadays, common sense is anything but common. The result of that, however, was not only did the casting agency see it, but they had, basically a justifiable shitstorm of, like, what the hell, who did this? And it turned out that it was somebody at my particular agency, which then resulted in my agency sending out an email to everybody who had auditioned, reminding them of how stupid that was and to take the goddamn video down immediately. So, needless to say, I don't think that the person involved ended up booking that job, because I can't imagine that the casting agency was like, oh, hey, good job on the audition, and thanks for posting all this confidential information out on social media. We're totally going to hire you. So, you have to be smart about this stuff. If you're thinking about getting into this industry, don't be an idiot. There's the right way to do things, there's the wrong way to do things. Everybody makes mistakes, granted. But there are mistakes that you can obviously very easily avoid making just by using the thing that's up here. So, yeah, so we had a couple of other auditions, nothing too severe. Last week we were talking about the oof. See, I almost just made a mistake right there. Last week we were talking about an audition that I did that had to be redone, 11 different times. Haven't heard back on that. I'm assuming I didn't get it. And considering who was in charge of that particular casting, I'm not all that surprised. So we talked about that. The TV series is through that same casting company, so chances of booking that one, you never know. Might get it, might not. So yeah, so we had some other auditions. They were mostly photo submissions. So my agent will contact me and say, hey, we're submitting you for this, or do you have a couple of candid pictures on your iPhone you can send over real quick? And so I had to do one of those this afternoon. So that was pretty much it. And in terms of the feature film, have not heard anything this week. I do know that it supposedly is supposed to be going into production within the next 5 days. I think it starts up. And they did add somebody to the cast that I am pretty happy about. So, and he happens to be in the scene that I'm doing, or at least the side that I did, the scene that I did for my audition that ended up getting me the role. Not only is the main star in that scene, but this dude is as well. So that's going to be interesting in and of itself. I'm pretty stoked about that. I just found out about that yesterday. So the IMDb page keeps getting updated every once in a while. I'm hesitant. So here's something interesting with regards to that. I watched the IMDb page just to see, you know, if they're going to list me yet or what. I mean, you know, these things are weird, right? I'm not anywhere near any type of a star. This is a speaking role. I have no idea where I fall in the hierarchy of the cast. It's, you know, I'm definitely not background. I'm definitely not an extra. You know, I don't think I'm Joe Blow on the street. I have a name, and I have lines. So, but with that said, I'm not going to rush on out to IMDb and pump my name up on the credits of this particular movie simply because, again, I don't want to make a mistake and piss the director off and have him go, well, we'll just replace that dude. You know, screw him. He's not the star of the movie, so we can just easily dump his ass and find somebody else. I don't want to do that. I did see that somebody from my agency is also cast on this movie and actually did list themselves on IMDb, and they are, I believe, further down in the casting hierarchy than I am. So that made me kind of go, yeah, I don't know if I would have done that. I mean, well, I can tell you, I would not have done that. You know, hopefully they're still on the movie, or hopefully the director hasn't seen the IMDb page. I don't know. Like I said, you know, there are weird rules to this industry, and sometimes you know them and sometimes you don't. I just always try to just, you know, not reveal anything, not, you know, be anything that resembles a diva or any of that stuff. You know, I always, my motto for films and TV and modeling or whatever is when I show up, my job is to make everybody else's job easy. You know my lines, give a good performance, get it done and in the can so everybody can go home where they'd rather be in the first place. You know, that's how I look at it. So I don't know whether it was a wise move on this person's part to actually kind of insert their name onto the IMDb page. I mean, the star of the movie is already out there. And the co-star of the movie who was just brought on board yesterday is also out on the IMDb page. And then this guy's on the IMDb page. So while I'm sure there may be some benefit to doing it, because if word starts to spread and people look up the page and they see this guy and they're like, oh, who's this guy? He's got a good look. Maybe we could hire him for something that we're doing. That may be a benefit, but I just feel like at this point where I'm at in my career, I don't want to do anything that's going to fuck that up. You know, so better to just wait, you know, get the scenes all shot, get the movie into the can, and then worry about IMDb later. You know, it doesn't strike me as a very wise thing to do right at this particular moment. But hey, to each their own, right? People do what they're going to do, and hopefully it doesn't end up costing them. I know, speaking for myself, speaking for where I'm at in my career, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I mean, I'm beyond thrilled that I actually landed this role, and considering it's my first feature film and it's my first SAG project, I don't want to do anything that's going to even remotely threaten that. So I'm just going to hold off. You know, I don't think anybody's going to be banging on my door going, holy crap, we saw you on this page and, you know, we got this action thriller for you to star in. I don't think that's going to happen yet. Might happen down the road, It's not going to happen yet. You know, I mean, I'm known for the cars that made America, and that's about it. You know, if you live in the Boston area and you see some of my crazy commercials that I've been in locally, it's another thing. But, you know, on a national stage or on an international stage, I'm more well known for my writing than I am for my acting at this point. And that's fine. It's a process, like anything else. So that's where we're at on the acting front. Let's move on after a quick break. Okay, so so we're back, and let's talk about writing. So last week I mentioned the new multimedia project that I'm going to be launching very soon. I'm still not going to tell you a whole ton of information about that, just because I kind of want this coming out of left field, quite frankly. I've done some stuff in the past before, and I've kind of let the rabbit out of the bag a little early, and found that I was not the only one doing what I was doing, if you know what I mean. So I'm not going to go out of my way and accuse people of stealing my ideas or anything like that. I've just found that by and large, when I have an idea that I think is going to be kind of cool, it's probably better to actually just keep it to myself than start gushing about it all out in the open before I actually am ready to go with it. So with that said, it does involve a series of short stories, and I am almost finished with the third short story in, let's just call it an anthology of short stories. I've written 2 since we talked last week, and they're fun. They're not, you know, this is not literary fiction. I mean, obviously, if you know me, if you're watching this, if you're listening to it, you know what I write. So, my tastes are varied and wide, but they tend not to be too deep. So I feel like my writing is kind of along the same lines. With that said, I think they're a lot of fun. You know, it's brain candy type stuff, right? Which is fine. Given that next month is October, and it's my birthday month, and it's Halloween, and not only is my birthday on a Saturday, but Halloween's on a Saturday, and there's like 2 full moons this October 2020. I mean, because why wouldn't there be, given the year we've had, right? I just wanted to do something kind of cool, something kind of special. So I am hoping that by this time next week, when we talk, I will be letting all the details out. And we will be hours away from launch, because this is kind of a celebration of all things October, all things fall, all things Halloween. I love this time of year. This is when my creative juices just pop off all over the place and spark. They flow, they pulse, however you want to call it. Fall has always been one of those times for me when things just fire off, and it's a fun time to be creating. So I think, I know I do. I reach a point, what I love about living in the Northeast is that there are 4 definite seasons. And I reach a point in every season where towards the end of those 12 weeks, I kind of start going, all right, it's time for a change. This year being 2020, and probably the end of the world at this point, who the hell knows, I reached that point fairly early on in like late July, and then I just had to sort of slog through the rest of August. But let's just say that I fully embraced the cool weather that kind of swept into the area last week, and we've been making some renovation around the house, some projects and stuff like that. So I painted the fireplace, and of course I painted it when it was hot as hell outside, and as soon as I saw how good it looked, I wanted to put a fire on, but it was way too hot. So as soon as it even got remotely cooler, I was like, I'm putting a fire on, that's it. And I did, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And I have a nice leather wraparound chair that I love to sit in and have a cocktail and jot down notes on my writing and other things that I'm working on. So for fall, for me, this is where it's at. This is when I love, you know, cool, crisp nights, bright sunny days. The leaves are changing. You know, there's that chill in the air because winter's coming. I managed to get a flu shot last week, and it didn't even bother me because the dude who gave it to me was so good at what he did. First of all, I barely felt it, and I didn't get any reaction to it, which is great because let's just say that Needles and Jon, in terms of inoculations, we don't really do too well together. When I was in the Air Force, we had to be worldwide qualified, meaning that they could just basically go, hey, guess what? We're sending you over there, and which is fine because we already gave you immunizations to combat any of the nasty tropical diseases or what have you operate in those countries. When they gave us those immunizations, when I was going through training, they used it's probably got a better name than what I'm going to say, but it was like a pneumatic air gun. And we lined up inside of this hangar in the hot Texas, heat. And basically they would just hold this thing against your shoulder and, shoot like, I don't know, a dozen different inoculations into your arm. I mean, there were guys... First of all, there were guys that were passing out. There were guys walking out, the poor deltoid is just a bloody mess because it's just been pounded with this pneumatic hammer. And, I managed to not have a bad experience there, aside from just the fact that I couldn't lift my arm for like a day. But later on, I got to one of my stations where I was deployed, and I had to get a typhoid booster all of a sudden, and that just knocked me completely on my ass. I think I basically slept for like 24 to 36 hours after I got that inoculation. So ever since I've, kind of wary about stuff. And this goes back to my childhood. I would get shots and I would just not do well on them for some reason. An arm would ache, or I would feel like I was getting feverish, and probably some of it's psychosomatic. I'm not going to discount that and say that it's not. It probably was, but never really been a big fan of getting inoculations. I can give blood all day long. My dad was a laboratory supervisor at a hospital here in Boston, and I grew up, anytime anybody was sick or anything like that, he'd come home and draw our blood and just make sure we were all okay. So I was, totally fine with that. And my dad was one of those amazing people who could draw blood and you'd never even feel it. So that's fine. It's just that inoculations in me, I always feel like I get some sort of a reaction to them. But I did not to my flu shot. So more reason to celebrate as far as I'm concerned. So with that said, that was just another sort of a high point in my into fall mode that is going on right now. So I'm totally stoked about that as well, because now hopefully the flu shot that I got is actually effective against this strain of flu that we'll probably be seeing very soon. I would recommend you all get your flu shots, considering you don't want to be sick with both the flu and COVID-19, heaven forbid, my God. And the fact we are where we're at over 200,000 dead in this country as a result of piss poor leadership. Don't get me started on that. I'm having a good vibe here on my October thing. We'll just put that aside. I will say this: make sure you're registered to vote. Vote, vote, vote. There's no room for people who go, hey, you know what, I'm just not going to vote. I just don't like it. It's just, what should I vote for? Those are useless people. I hate people like that. Get out, take a stand. And don't waste your vote either. Okay? Third-party vote is not a viable means of protest. It's just not. We don't have a viable third, fourth, fifth, sixth party in this country. You are just wasting your vote. You are giving it to whoever you don't want to see in office. That's how it works. Even in states that are reliably red or reliably blue, you vote third party, you're just pissing your vote away. All right? And there's too much to lose in this election. And if you don't know me, I don't like Trump. I think he sucks. I think he's a traitor. And if I hear from you after this and you're like, well, you just lost a reader, I don't really care. I really don't. Don't need you. Don't want you, quite frankly. As far as I'm concerned, Trump is the worst president in the history of the United States. Okay, he goes against everything that I fought to protect when I was a veteran, when I was in the service, when I was working for the government. He doesn't care about any of it. And quite frankly, I think he's a Russian asset. So, fuck him. And fuck Mitch McConnell, too, while we're at it, and all the rest of those slimy GOP fucktards. Anyway, that's my political soapbox for the day. And I'm sure some of you are probably going to be really pissed off about that. I'm not going to get into a debate with you about it. At this point, it's not politics. Politics is whether I want to approve a tax increase for a new school in my town. Politics is not whether, blacks have the same rights as whites, or whether women have the same rights as men, or whether gays have the right to marry. That's just called being a decent human being. And if you think that any of those people, aren't suffering from marginalization or any of that, get your head out of your ass, okay? This country is supposed to be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everybody. Everybody. That's it. So fuck Trump. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break and come back and do some, we'll do an excerpt. Cool? Cool. Okay, welcome back. First of all, quick apology. Did not mean to get into politics in this episode. I was going to save that until we get closer to voting and election day, but RBG is dead now. Turtle Boy McConnell's going to try to pack the Supreme Court with a whole bunch of religious zealots who ought to keep their religion to their own goddamn selves instead of trying to force it down the throats of other people. So, I digressed a wee bit. Apologies. Not for, if it pissed you off because I'm anti-Trump, I'm not apologizing about that. He sucks. That's it. But I am apologizing if you came here to escape politics and I happened to inject a little bit. So with that said, I'm going to give you a treat. We will read from the short story that I'm working on at this very, well, not at this very moment. I'm obviously recording this podcast, but currently, this is the story that is in progress. This is The Vengeance of Tanu Tamani. So, let's take a read. Here we go. Few people in the town of Medfield, some 20 miles to the southwest of Boston, would have ever suspected that a man such as Derek Lowry lived within their midst. For while in archaeological circles his fame was well known, there was little outside of that community that would have marked him as extraordinary, and Lowry tended to prefer it that way. As the colleague of his more famous counterpart, George Reisner, whose fame was even greater than Lowry's and yet still managed to defy presence on the world stage, Lowry had shared in their conjoined discoveries across the Middle East, and in particular Egypt. Accolades and generous stipends and sponsorships had gifted Lowry with wealth that he had added to the already sizable family fortune he had inherited at the young age of 20. But unlike the more freewheeling counterparts of his youth, Lowry hadn't wasted it on gambling and drinking and carousing, but instead had invested it wisely, purchased real estate in other places, and secured himself a large country estate on vast acreage in the town of Medfield. That no one in town recognized him as he traveled from his home there into Cambridge to work with Reisner bothered him little, and none noticed when he was away from the town for months at a time, off on digs in the middle of the desert. Nor would they have cared. The sands of Egypt were as foreign to them as the planets and stars that filled the night sky. But Lowry loved his home in Medfield and its tranquility out of the bustle of the city. And so it was on this night, as he drove back from the city along winding country roads, heading west, that he found himself ruminating on his lack of fame with perhaps the only person in Medfield who did know what Lowry did. The man next to him, James Callahan, was the caretaker of his property, and the one soul that Lowry trusted above almost all others to look after things while he was away. But on this night, As Lowry waxed poetic about how crazy his life was, Callahan kept glancing furtively over his shoulder at the rear of the long car. Behind them sat a pine box roughly 8 feet long. They'd only just managed to fit it inside the car and close the back door once more. Little typo there. It was an obvious source of discomfort for Callahan, and he decided to say as much. "I'm not crazy about this, Lowry." Lowry only laughed. "You've never ridden with a dead man before, Callahan? I find that hard to believe." "Believe what you want. There's a world of difference between a funeral and what you've got back there. I can't believe you intend to store it at the house." Lowry wheeled around another curve in the road and continued on his way. "George is worried about the safety of it at the museum until we can get it properly secured. He asked a favor of me, and I aim to see it fulfilled." "What sort of threat would something like this face?" Lowry shot him a look. "You up for a story, then?" "If I must." Lowry cleared his throat and started. "If you have any knowledge of the Egyptian dynasties—" "I most certainly do not," said Callahan. "Well, all you need to know that it's the 25th one that we'll be talking of. Tanutamani was the last pharaoh of it, and under his rule there was a period of peace and prosperity. But unfortunately the Assyrians invaded, and Tanutamani was forced to flee." "Forced to flee?" Callahan grumbled. "Sounds more like a coward's path than anything else. A real leader would have stayed and fought." "And most assuredly he would have perished in battle," said Lowry. "That is what leaders are sometimes required to do," said Callahan. "When I was with Roosevelt—" "We're not talking about Teddy right now," snapped Lowry. "In any event, Tanutamani fled into Napata, which was south. There he was able to establish what would eventually become the Meroitic Kingdom, which continued to flourish well into the 4th century A.D. It was a triumph for Tanutamani, and he was Well, there's a kick in the nuts. Thank you, FaceTime. Sorry about that. It was a triumph for Tanutamani, and yet he was described by many as always having regret over his lost kingdom to the north, such that his hatred of the Assyrians and anything associated with them was palpable. As much time as he devoted to his people in his new kingdom, he always harbored an almost unnatural hatred for the Assyrians, going so far as to curse them for all eternity. Callahan again glanced over his shoulder. "What sort of curse?" "In effect," said Lowry, "he cursed the entire bloodline of the Assyrians. Anyone with Assyrian blood would find themselves stricken down at some point." Callahan, far more used to gun-wielding foes than anything supernatural, shook his head. "And we're bringing this to the house. Wonderful." Lowry laughed. "You needn't worry, old friend. I doubt very much you have any Assyrian blood running in your veins. We will be safe, I guarantee it." Callahan eyed him. "And what makes you say that? I am a man of reality, and yet even I can attest to the strange. Who knows what power these ancient curses contain? I would be a fool to discount them all, and I was not raised a fool." "Your ancestors ventured forth from the Emerald Isles over 100 years ago," said Lowry, "and prior to that, their lineage extends back nearly a millennium in Ireland itself. I think you have little to fear from the likes of this old fellow behind us." Callahan glanced back again. "The fact that we have his body in this car does little to soothe my nerves. The dead should remain buried and respected. That is what I have always believed. It goes against God's will to do otherwise." "Friend," said Lowry, "this fellow here was a mighty king long before the God of Christianity came to be. I fear your religious dogma will hold no sway with me on this night or any other." And that is a brief excerpt from The Vengeance of Tanutamani, a new short story that I am working on currently. So I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, all the short stories that I'm working on right now are horror, so keep that in mind. They will be, well, hopefully they'll be frightening. We'll see. We'll see how much they get under your skin a little bit. Maybe they're love letters to the horror community or to horror fans in general. As I said, it is that time of year, and I'm embracing it. I'm rushing at it headlong. So hopefully the month of October is going to be a real fun one. That's what I'm optimistic about. So, with that said, the usual stuff is going on with POUNDCAKE. We're still working on edits for the tale. Our schedule is still Monday through Friday. We're putting out new stuff every single day over on youtube.com/POUNDCAKE media, all one word. And we always appreciate subscriptions, so please subscribe. Comment on the video. Laura, love you. You've been commenting. I really appreciate that. Hopefully you're checking out some of the other stuff that we're putting out and enjoying it as well as this podcast. And, quick note. We are now on Amazon. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Amazon got into the podcast world, I think. And Dead Drop is now available over on Amazon as well. So if you have Amazon Music or whatever the service is, you can find this podcast over there, as well as POUNDCAKE's flagship podcast, Cocktails and Screams, which Chris and I do. We record it every Saturday night, and we get it out first thing from Monday morning. What are we reviewing? Last week, we reviewed The Visit, the M. Night Shyamalan movie from a couple of years ago. Before that, the week before that, we did The Headhunter, a $30,000 sword and sorcery movie that I particularly enjoyed. This coming week, we're doing Solomon Kane, based on the series of stories by Robert Howard, which I am a huge fan of. I just love Robert Howard's stuff in general. I really dig Solomon Kane's character, so we're doing that movie, which was a European production, I think. So please head on over to youtube.com/POUNDCAKE media. You'll see all our podcasts. You got Dead Drop. This one comes out on Thursdays. After Hours, which is the podcast that Chris and I do after Cocktails and Screams, where we literally talk about anything and everything while we continue to have a few more drinks. So you can probably guess how that goes. And then Chris does another podcast after that called Are You Awake? Where he actually calls people up and asks, are you awake? Do you want to talk? Let's talk. Here's something we can talk about. Not a whole lot of scripting to any of these, but they are fun. And in the time of a pandemic, it's probably not a bad thing to have your choice of entertainment. And if you happen to be up one night, check it out. And then we've got, that's it, right? So Cocktails and Screams, After Hours, Are You Awake, and Dead Drop. And then we're going to have some new stuff premiering soon. I don't have an exact date, but that will be coming out, so I will let you know when it does. And it's just a good idea to check in on YouTube. You can watch this podcast. You can listen to all the podcasts. It's pretty cool. We're doing a lot of stuff. We're consistently pumping out content. Let's put it that way. So hopefully you enjoy it. We enjoy making it for you, and we're having a blast. For now, that is going to close out episode 24 of the Dead Drop podcast. I am your host, Jon F. Merz. I wish you all the very best. Be good to each other, and put a little gratitude out in the world. Be nice to your neighbors if they deserve it. Do something nice for somebody, and spread some joy, some love, some peace, some happiness. The world definitely needs more of it. I will see you next week with more news. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you need to find any of my books, you can find them out on my website, jonfmerz.net/all-on-1. That will take you to my big page of everything that you can buy right now that is out and published. And I will see you next week. You guys be good. Have a great night, and thank you again.